Shalom family, I'm going to be talking to you from my home, away from home right now. It's a subject that I've been thinking about for some time now, and I just haven't had the time to really touch on this subject, but I think I want to now. And looking at the title, you know where I'm going. Right now, we as so-called black people, we represent the path of least resistance for everybody in the world. You know, this is why we have been so easily conquered. I talked about that before. I believe it was sometime last year, that we're just very easily conquered because we represent a path of least resistance. Any nation, European nations, Asian nations, Arab nations, these nations, they just come into our territories, they come into our space, they come into our lives, and they do what they will. Okay? Now, we know the meaning or the reason for this. I'm not going to really get too much into the reason for this right now. Maybe later on as I speak I will, but right now I just want to just kind of highlight, what the nations have done to us in terms of overthrowing us, swooping in, overmastering us, and ruling over us, and doing all these things. And I think it's a mental thing that has happened to so-called black people or indigenous people of this planet, where the fight that we have in us is misdirected. Okay? And when we see those who are not of us, don't look like us, don't have our best interests in mind, we are easily manipulated and tricked by those people, because we look to them as though they are something above us, and so therefore it's easy for them to conquer us. A good example, for instance, I'm going to deal with the Asians. Most people expect me to deal right away with white people because they have dominated the whole world pretty much. Okay, even that is in scripture. But I'm going to deal with the Asians. We as a people are so out of the loop with who we really are and what we represent that even over in African countries, when I say we as a people, let me clarify that too. I'm talking about black people. It doesn't matter if you're an Israelite, if you're an African, Moabite, whatever. But we, as so-called dark indigenous people of this planet, we have come to hate what we see, to those of us today, mainly because when we look at our ancestors being conquered, being overthrown and overtaken, we look at that as some type of inferiority, to say that these people must be better or greater than we are because they were able to do this, that, and the other. And we don't look at what's really happening, because physically, who's stronger? Who's more, I don't want to use the term superior because I'm not trying to push a superiority complex, but whose body is more adapted to this planet? You see? But because we look at them as though they are the angels of light, we look at them as representatives of those that are beautiful. You see, because there has been a mind manipulation going on with dark indigenous people. The media has been used to gain control over our minds. So what they put before you is everything pale and pretty. And then they put before you everything that's dark and dingy. They don't put before you the dark beauties of the world. They don't put the beautiful African or Israelite women before you, or even the dark Arab women. Not the Arabs that are mixed, not them. I'm talking about the dark, indigenous, melanated, non-mixed Arab people. They don't put before you the dark Mexicans, not the ones that are mixed. I'm not talking about the mixed. I'm talking about the dark, beautiful Mexicans or the dark, beautiful Native Americans. They put before you everything that has been whited out, everything that is pale, everything that is mixed or blended. That is what they put before you. And I'm not trying to put down anyone else. I'm just trying to make a point here that when they put before you everything that is pale and pretty, and then dark and dingy, you begin to associate anything that's dark with being dingy and dirty, you see, and anything that's pale as being beautiful. This is why you'll have a so-called black man who, because he has established, he's allowed his mind to be tricked to the point of mind manipulation or control, to where he will take an obese, unattractive white woman over a thin, beautiful, petite black woman. And he will believe that this is the prize over here. The same with so-called black women. They will take a troglodyte looking pale white male over a black, dark, handsome black man, because we have been tricked into thinking that anything that doesn't look like us is better than us. You see, this is the mind rape that has happened to us. And so therefore, we are a people that represent the path of least resistance. Because anytime you have propped up your enemies on a pedestal to think that they are an improvement to you or your people, it's easy to conquer such a person or such a group. We are the path of least resistance. We don't know how to fight because we have succumbed to our enemies. We have allowed our enemies to take control of this battlefield. The real battlefield is in the mind, and because they have control over that, they have conquered us, many of us. But many of us are beginning to retreat from that battle, and we're entering into another to regain control of our mental capacity. That's what we are doing. Many of us are doing that. Not enough of us, but many of us are. And so no longer do we look at anything outside of us as better than us. We look to the Father above. We look to the Most High, and we say, look, we thank you for the creation of us that you have made. We thank you for the melanin that you have blessed us with. We thank you for making us a people of yourself, you see. And most of us can't even relate to that, because we think, we've been programmed to believe that we are nothing. As a whole, we believe we are nothing. And as long as you believe that, you already conquered. Resistance. First of all, I want to define what resistance is. A very wise man helped me to understand that, because my husband, the Christian church, they used to say, resist the devil and he will flee from you. And the way they taught it was, ignore the devil and he will flee from you. That's not how you resist. Resist means to fight. It means to fight. And that's why we are the path of least resistance. We don't fight our enemies. We don't even fight the devil. We have been taught to believe that if you ignore the devil, he will flee from you. If you ignore your enemies, they won't bother you. Fight is what we are supposed to do. That's what resistance means. We're supposed to fight. Now, that's another problem. Those of us who are engaging in some type of fight or battle, we're going about it the wrong way. You have our people who are on the streets marching, no justice, no peace, or hands up, don't shoot. I mean, it's going from one piece of rhetoric to another. Hands up, don't shoot. I'm sorry, something got my attention out there. Hands up, don't shoot, no justice, no peace. We shall overcome, all this other stuff. We think that is a fight. That is a cop-out. That is a wimp's way out. All of this marching and begging for mercy from people who have already established that we are not going to give you any mercy. That is a wimp's way out. There is a strategic fight that we can do, but we're not up for that. We don't want to do that because we love these people too much. We love what they've established too much. And I'm not even talking about bullets and guns, because like I said before in another video, we are outgunned and outnumbered. That's not the battle I'm referring to. And for those of you who didn't understand that, I'm not saying not to protect your family like everyone else does and like the law says that we can do. I'm not talking about someone breaking into your house and you defending and protecting your family. There is another battle or war that we need to engage in, and most of us are not even prepared for that, because we've sat back and we've made ourselves enemies. Not talking about yourself individual, because we know that that's your worst enemy, okay? I'm talking about we sit back and we look amongst our own people, the Israelites or indigenous people, because you have Africans who hate other Africans too. We as dark indigenous people, whether you're African or Israelite or Arab or Mexican, dark indigenous people, what we have done as we look at our own people within our own groups, our own families, our own communities, our own nationality, and we want to establish enemies there. We don't want to see ourselves or each other rise above anything. We'd rather see Becky and Biff do all the rising. Because as long as Becky and Biff are doing the rising, that's the status quo. That's normal to us. But if we see one another rising above certain things, we get this angry, bitter eye towards each other. What is that? What is our problem? This is why we are the path of least resistance, because our enemies know. They know that we can't stand to see one another do well or prosper or learn or grow or do anything. We can't stand it. You have so-called black women who can't stand to see another beautiful black woman. You have so-called black men who can't stand to see another brother who's handsome and strong and handling his business and doing his thing. We are so pathetic as a people, and this is why we are the path of least resistance. Because our enemies, they sit back and they watch us. They sit back and watch how we deal with each other. They sit back and watch how we want to see one another destroyed. They see how they can play each other, how they can play us against each other. All it takes is for Massa to promise something over here if you help defeat this one over here. And we're just so ready to do that. Massa make a promise to us. We're so ready to destroy one another because of what Massa has to offer. And this is why we are the path of least resistance. This is why we are so pathetic as a people, because we represent the path of least resistance. They know that they won't get a fight out of us against them, but they know that all they have to do is say and do the right things, and they can make us fight each other. We are ready to take one another down. We are ready to destroy one another. We are ready to defeat one another. We are ready to hurt one another. But when it comes to our enemies, we don't want to do a thing. We don't want to lift a finger. And this is why we represent the path of least resistance. We are the laughing stock. I started off talking about the Asians. I don't think I ever went back to that. Let me go back to that. But let me tell you what the Asians are doing now, because they know we represent the path of least resistance. The Asians are over there in Africa doing the same thing that the Europeans were doing, in a different way though. The Europeans, they went over there to Africa. They said, look at these people. They're not going to resist us. They're not going to do anything. They don't have any weapons. They don't have any skills or smarts. We did have smarts, but we didn't have, see, the weapons was the thing. That was the dividing line right there. Because there were African warriors who could take these people out if they didn't have the weapons that they have. But they knew their weapons made them more powerful, in a sense, okay? Especially since we were people who had departed from our Father in heaven. And so the white man was able to divide the lands and make this region, that region, this region, just carving it up, just like pieces of pie, passing it out to one another, while we sat in the land watching it happening, because we were the path of least resistance. They said that all these people can't do it. What they gonna do? We gonna come say, look, I'm the president of this land. What you gonna do about it? And the black people were like, they called us little children who didn't have any thoughts or ability to defend ourselves, which was a bald-faced lie. They don't tell you the whole truth. There were people who fought. There were people who died because we didn't have the weapons that they have. Without their weapons, they are pathetic. You hear what I'm saying? Pathetic. But let me tell you what the Asians are doing now. The Asians are saying we're going to get a foothold in Africa a different way. We really don't care about Africans either, but what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we are going to impregnate black women, because they already think anything outside of them is a prize. So these dark, black, chocolate, indigenous African women are going to be so happy to have an Asian man who wants to lay with them and produce a child that looks different than them. Because we know they want that lighter seed. So we're going to give them that lighter seed. But this time it's not going to be the white man's seed. It's going to be the Asian seed. And our child together is going to establish our Asian or Chinese roots in this land. This child is going to have rights to this land. And because this child is going to be a natural born citizen of this dark indigenous woman and this Asian man, we have our foothold in here now. And so then a few generations down the line, see, they think about down the line. They're not just thinking about the here and now. This man knows that someday he's going to die, but he knows that Asians will have their permanent foothold in the land because he dropped his seed in that African woman. These people are very wise. Scripture tells us to be wise too. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves, right? That needs to be explained too, because when we think of harmless, we think turn the other cheek mess. I'm not getting into that right now. That's a whole other lesson. But we're supposed to be wise too. But we've become so foolish because we marvel after the image of the beast. We want anything that looks different than us. And so this is how the Asians have been able to get their control and foothold, is by giving an exotic seed. That's what we think it is. It's so strange that our DNA represents the strongest on this planet. But we think it's an improvement when we drop in Asian seed or Latino seed or white seed, European seed. We think anything other than us is a better seed. I mean, you even have African couples where there's a black man and a black woman paying thousands of dollars for a white man's sperm so they can have a light-skinned baby. How pathetic is that black man to think that the white man's seed is better than his? You see, family, we represent the path of least resistance because we have no idea what has taken place in this world. We have detached ourselves spiritually from things that are spiritual, and we've connected to the natural. I tell you what, family, I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. I could say so much more. I might even come back to this subject because I have so many thoughts circulating, but I hear some things going on out here, and we do have to prepare for Shabbat service. I just wanted you all to chew on what I'm saying for a minute. Our fight is wrong. We're engaging in the wrong fight. We are engaging in a losing battle. The way we've chosen to fight is all wrong. All wrong. Maybe part 2 of this, I'll talk more about the fight that we're supposed to be involved in and how we can regain our control, regain control of this on a spiritual level, okay? Because even we don't need to have control of it. We need to have the Most High. When the scripture says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Yahushua HaMashiach, that's what I'm talking about in terms of how our minds are supposed to function, because the way our minds function right now, we look at everything on a natural. We are supposed to be on a spiritual plane to where we can reconnect with spiritual power. And until we're able to do that, we're going to forever look to our enemies as the end all do all of us, as if they are the ones who are supposed to shape every thought that we have. Our thoughts should not be shaped by people who are not indigenous, people who hate us, people who despise us and want to use us and abuse us. Okay, on that note, I'm going to say shalom, family. Give you something to chew on for a moment, because this is one of those subjects I think we need to revisit. How is it that we can regain control of our families and our communities the right way? Because we've gone about it the wrong way. No justice, no peace. We shall overcome. Hands up, don't shoot. That stuff ain't working. Don't y'all know that by now? Forget about all that nonsense. That's not resistance. That's no power. I think about the revolutionary rappers back then. And I know I said I'm going to close out, but this came to mind. It says, fight the powers that be. At least with that song, they were, getting a little bit of an understanding. Not the full understanding, because they don't understand the spiritual aspects of all of this. But you have to fight the power. That's called resist the power. But you cannot do it in the way that we have been going about it. You cannot do it with bullets and guns. You cannot do it with marching and protesting. That's not the way, family. And on that note, I'm going to say shalom.